manufacturing modular homes, prefab homes. So my question to you is not about housing or prefab homes. It's about whether you think our Prime Minister, our unelected Prime Minister, should disclose his assets immediately, tomorrow, because people are voting now. We're all going to have voted by April 28th, and we need to know what he owns before he becomes Prime Minister and makes huge decisions every day that might be influenced by his assets.
Was to Charles,
Yep.
and it's in regards to disclosing assets of the party leader.
Yeah, so I believe Mark Carney has responded to this, and I'll just reference it again. He has declared all his assets months prior to requiring to do so. He has put forward and sold his shares, from what I'm told. He has some real estate properties and some other positions which are now being managed by a private trust, all within the control of the Integrity Commissioner and the Privacy Commissioner. Pierre Poilievre has similar assets. Now, whatever is being proposed by the decisions being made, there are conflicts of interest rules that must be abided by. Anything that we're doing is being made by Canadians, and they're being produced and manufactured in Canada is part of the recommendations being made by Prime Minister Carney. And the notion that he is unelected is the very reason he calls for a quick election, right? We have a situation where we have attracted an outstanding individual of some great caliber who knows how to negotiate and make deals because he's been in the private sector, he's been in the public sector, he's been part of major countries' involvement with the bank, both in England and in Canada, and the world seeks him out for advice and support. When he deals and negotiates with leaders of the world, including Donald Trump, he doesn't refer to him as the governor of Canada because he earns their respect. And respect is essential, and transparency is essential.
Thank you.
Okay,
Next question.
with respect, that's not
And
my question.
Brookfield is a public traded company with many, many security requirements and transparency measures being afforded
Thank
to
you.
it.
We need
So-
to move on.
But-
No, I'm sorry. You've had your question. Next
Okay,
question.
you didn't answer
Thanks
my
so much.
question.
Hi, my question is regarding where we're situated right now, which is Mississauga's waterfront, where we're going to be seeing a lot of development, particularly with Lakeview Village and as well as the Brightwater development. This question is directed to Charles, and it's how will you advocate on the ground level to make sure that the federal government helps fund all the infrastructure that's needed to service these areas, particularly so that it doesn't end up on the taxpayers' tax base with regards to, in the context of your government proposing to cut things like development charges, where we won't see that funding come into place, and we need all the infrastructure and transit lines and things like that.
So if I get the question right, we're talking about the increase in population, the requirement for proper infrastructure like transit and housing to accommodate the effects it has on our villages in Port Credit, Clarkson, Lakeview. As you may know, and many of you do know, I'm the one that actually sold Lakeview to the developers to try to protect our waterfront. Now, I did that at the time when I gave 67 acres of public land to the community to protect public access to the community. We also did it with the understanding that we only have 4,500 units or 5,000 units or thereabouts, not 16,000 or 18,000 that's now grown to. We have to take proper measures to collaborate with the visioning exercises of the community. You are the ones that determined what that value of that property was. And that's how I came to that particular price. Had I known it was going to go to 16,000, believe you me, taxpayers would have made a lot more money on the sale of that property. Now, I am the parliamentary secretary that oversees the marina here on Port Street. That is public land. That's Canada Lands. It's one of the ministries that I oversee. And we need to do exactly a much better job of protecting the community's vision for that property, for housing, and for public access. So to your point, we need to ensure that what happens in these communities, we have the proper infrastructure to make it so. Now, there are hubs because of the GO train that's been in place. There's going to be the Metrolink spine that goes up Highway 10, but it's not enough to protect Lakeview, Port Credit, and Clarkson because of the transit system and the lakeshore is just not enough to accommodate them all. So more, and the community, they're doing that job. The municipality is also collaborating in a big way. So I'll have provided you vote for me, I'll have the opportunity to oversee the public lands and Canada lands here in Port Credit to ensure that we safeguard our position as we go forward.
Thank you. Last question of the evening.
Hi. The question is just about efficiencies within the actual staffing of the government. A lot of reports have been coming out about the cost of consultants that the federal government has taken in, as well as the growth of the staff themselves. Yet there seems to be more and more inefficiencies within all the various levels of government operating. And what is the need of the consultants, and is there a way to streamline?
Who would you like to direct that
Charles.
to Charles. And again, the question is in regards to the cost of consultants and inefficiencies.
Yeah, and it's also in regards to the procurement practices of Canada. There's over 10 million, over $100 billion in procurement that's done by the government of Canada with many Canadian companies, offshore companies, and consulting firms. Some of these consulting firms act as the project manager of a construction site, for example. Then they subcontract all the different hires to get things done. We need to do a better job. Now, we don't want necessarily to hire all these consultants to work full-time for government, because then we escalate the bureaucracy in government for a lack of work. But we do need to be careful about overspending and controlling that spending. So there is the Ombudsman, the Auditor General, the Procurement of Canada have put regulations in place to provide for greater transparency on every contract. There's a number of rules that must be put in place. And one of those rules, by the way, is that elected officials can't make the decision, to ensure that there is no conflict of interest by that elected official, including whatever procurement is going to be done on modular homes or airplanes or programs. IT programs, for example, is a big part of procurement. But we need to have transparency measures in place. They now exist to ensure that proper procedures in place, especially for Indigenous, the First Nations. We talked about truth and reconciliation was referred to by some of the recommendations made by Jordan's principles. We need to do that too for companies and Canadian companies. Provide for more procurement opportunities for smaller Canadian companies to bid on those projects, not just big consulting firms.
Now I'd like to hand over to Deb Goss, who is the president of the Lakeview Ratepayers Association.
Thank you. It's great to see so many people out, so many informed people. I'm very proud of our community for bringing some really good questions to our candidates tonight. And part of the process of putting this together in just a month is very difficult. It's under a time constraint. And I have to thank Mary Simpson and Mary Ferlin and also Sue Shane for putting this together. But if you could have seen the number of emails that passed between them, it was unbelievable. I had to stop because I couldn't, I have to work. I can't look at this anymore. But there's one question that hasn't been put forward, and I'm going to read it, so I hope you can just use that. We're going to have some indulgence here to ourselves as to put this question out to the candidates. Rising property taxes. Since the pandemic, many municipalities are struggling to find the many services they provide to their communities. Their main source of funding is property taxes. In the absence of reliable funding streams and increasing downloading of services from the province, does it make sense that municipalities remain creatures of the province? Question. Would direct federal funding to cities make more financial sense? And what are your views on this issue? And this is out to anybody that wants to answer.